There are a number of ancient cities considered myths by most authors that some believe existed before a written history in different places on Earth. The lost city of Z, just like Atlantis, is one such mysterious place. There is an extremely interesting document referred to as Manuscript 512, located in the Brazilian National Library in Rio de Janeiro. It mentions how a group of explorers stumbled upon a ruined ancient city in the eastern parts of Brazil in 1753. This magnificent stone city was unlike any other city they've ever seen, with architecture early reminiscent of that of ancient Greece, and mysterious writings not native to the region. The most famous person to ever search for this lost city was a man called Colonel Percy Harrison Fawcett, a renowned explorer who tried discovering the long-lost city thought to remain hidden somewhere in the Amazon jungle. According to myths and legends, the lost city of Z would have been erected in very ancient times by the descendants of Atlantis. It is believed that the Atlanteans who survived the destruction of their home escaped to a number of different regions on Earth, and some of them ended up in the Amazon, where they eventually settled down. Colonel Fawcett made 8 expeditions, disappearing in the last one under very strange circumstances. Did he find the lost city of Z in the Amazonian jungle? Could the lost city of Z be connected to El Dorado and Atlantis? And what exactly happened to Colonel Fawcett in his last expedition? Join the universe inside you and let us dive together into this enigmatic mystery. During the Age of Exploration, stories of lost mythical cities were very popular. But where do stories about massive cities made of gold, inhabited by powerful beings, come from? We can say that part of the stories come from the Old Continent. Many years after Plato's description of Atlantis, when the European explorers began arriving at the Americas, the myths and legends of supernatural creatures and pseudo-human tribes slowly gave way to stories of massive ancient cities hidden in the heart of the jungle. But what exactly is the reason? Some authors would argue that thanks to the abundance of indigenous communities that the Europeans faced, their exuberant religious rites fed the European fantasies, which quickly spread. Thinking of a great civilization whose wealth one cannot imagine was quickly acknowledged as a common idea, an idea that would later, according to many authors, become known as the legend of El Dorado, and that, moreover, satisfied the delirious hunger for gold of the first and several of the following visitors to the continent. Legends of such wealthy abandoned cities served as a perfect inspiration for thousands of explorers, conquistadors, and settlers to dive fearlessly into the unknown. However, that's not the case of the lost city of Z. What's different about this magnificent city is that unlike the other myths and legends, there is actual evidence of its existence. Colonel Percy Harrison Fawcett was a British explorer who named the lost city of Z in 1912 after finding an ancient document titled Manuscript 512, which is now kept in the National Library of Brazil. The document called Manuscript 512 is believed to have been authored by a Portuguese bandeirantes. The bandeirantes were 17th century Portuguese settlers in Brazil and fortune hunters. Though they originally aimed to capture and enslave Native Americans, the bandeirantes later began to focus their expeditions on finding gold, silver, and diamond mines. As they ventured into unmapped regions in search of profit and adventure, they expanded the effective borders of the Brazilian colony. One of these bandeirantes was João da Silva Guimarães, the man who discovered the ruins of a mighty ancient city containing arches, statues, and temples covered in hieroglyphs deep in the Amazonian jungle in the year of 1753. The mysterious Manuscript 512 was written by this man, and in it he described the city in great detail, although he did not give its location. The enigmatic manuscript is completed with curious details, such as documenting the discovery of a bag of gold coins bearing the silhouette of an archer and a crown, or the reproduction of hieroglyphs copied from various corners of the city, which some say bear an uncanny similarity with Greek and Phoenician letters. These strange characters were engraved on the great stones sealing the vault of treasure that the Banderistas could not open. Access to the original manuscript in the National Library of Brazil is extremely limited at present, although a digital version of this became available with the digital update of the National Library. The fascinating manuscript was discovered many years later and inspired many explorers to search for the lost city. The most prominent of these explorers was the man who discovered the letter, Colonel Percy Fawcett, who became extremely obsessed with it. He was the leader of numerous expeditions. He made 7 expeditions between 1906 and 1924, with him even returning home to serve in the First World War. Throughout his many travels, Fawcett had heard rumors of a secret ancient underground city located somewhere in the jungles of Chile, which, according to tales, legends, and reports, was made of streets paved with silver and roofs of gold. After discovering the manuscript which confirmed the existence of this enigmatic city, Fawcett was sure it's real and it's out there in the depths of the jungles waiting to be discovered. Fawcett wrote about the lost city of Z in a letter to his son in 1912. I expect the ruins to be monolithic in character, more ancient than the oldest Egyptian discoveries. Judging by inscriptions found in many parts of Brazil, the inhabitants used an alphabetical writing allied to many ancient European and Asian scripts. There are rumors, too, of a strange source of light in the buildings, a phenomenon that filled with terror the Indians who claimed to have seen it. The central place I call Z. Our main objective is in a valley surmounted by lofty mountains. The valley is about 10 miles wide, and the city is on an eminence in the middle of it, approached by a barreled roadway of stone. The houses are low and windowless, and there is a pyramidal temple. The inhabitants of the place are fairly numerous. They keep domestic animals, and they have well-developed mines in the surrounding hills. Not far away is a second town, but the people living in it are of an inferior order to those of Z. Farther to the south is another large city, half buried and completely destroyed. Judging by this letter, Colonel Fawcett fervently believed in the existence of this city, and he was determined to be the man who would discover it. In 1920, he made a solo attempt to search for Z, but ended after suffering from a fever and shooting his pack animal. After 5 years of preparation, in March of 1925, with funding from a London-based group of financiers known as the Glove and the Royal Geographic Society, Fawcett returned to Brazil with his eldest son Jack and Jack's best and longtime friend for an exploratory expedition to find the lost city of Z. Fawcett left instructions stating that if the expedition did not return, no rescue expedition should be sent, lest the rescuers suffer his fate. Fawcett, having years of experience traveling, was very prepared this time. He had brought equipment such as canned foods, powdered milk, guns, flares, a sextant, and a chronometer. His travel companions were both chosen for their health, ability, and loyalty to each other. Fawcett chose only 2 companions in order to travel lighter and with less notice to native tribes, as some were hostile towards outsiders. He was certain that his expedition would culminate with the discovery of the mythical city. In May of 1925, the expeditions had reached the edge of uncharted territory, exploring an area that no foreigner had ever dared cross. Fawcett's beliefs were greatly influenced on what the Indians had told him about alleged lost cities spread across the Amazon jungle. Even his penultimate letter mentions one such tale. Correspondence from Colonel Fawcett dated May 20th, 1925 reads, I saw the Indian chief Roberto and had a talk with him. Under the expanding influence of wine, he corroborated all my Cuyaba friend told me, and more. Owing to what his grandfather had told him, he always wanted to make the journey to the waterfall, but is now too old. He is of the opinion that bad Indians are numerous there, but committed himself to the statement that his ancestors had built the old cities. This I am inclined to doubt, for he, like the Mekinaku Indians, is of the brown or Polynesian type, and it is the fair or red type I associate with the cities. The team traveled into territory that no one had ever seen. They faced many dangers, but they wouldn't give up. Eventually they reached an area called Dead Horse Camp, when Fawcett sent back dispatches for another 5 months, finally stopping after the 5th. In this dispatch, on the 29th of May, 1925, he would send a letter to his wife. My dear Nina, the attempt to write is fraught with much difficulty, thanks to the legions of flies that pester one from dawn till dusk, and sometimes all through the night. The worst are the tiny ones that are smaller than a pinhead, almost invisible, but sting like a mosquito. Clouds of them are always present. Millions of bees add to the plague, and other bugs galore, stinging horrors that get all over one's hands. Even the head nets won't keep them out. And as for mosquito nets, the pests fly through them. It is quite maddening. We hope to get through this region in a few days and are camped here for a while to arrange for the return of the peons who are anxious to get back, having had enough of it, and I don't blame them. We go on with 8 animals, 3 saddle mules, 4 cargo mules, and a madrina, a leading animal which keeps the others together. Jack is well and fit and getting stronger every day, even though he suffers a bit from insects. I myself am bitten or stung by ticks, and these piums, as they call the tiny ones, all over the body. It is Raleigh I am anxious about. He still has 1 leg in a bandage, but won't go back. So far we have plenty of food and no need to walk, but I am not sure how long this will last. There may be little for the animals to eat as we head further in. I cannot hope to stand up on this journey better than Jack or Raleigh. My extra years tell, though I do my best to make up for it with enthusiasm, but I had to do this. I calculate that I shall contact the Indians in about a week, perhaps 10 days, when we should be able to reach the much talked about waterfall. Here we are at Dead Horse Camp, latitude 110.43 south and 540.35 west, the spot where my horse died in 1920. Only his white bones remain. We can bathe ourselves here, but the insects make it a matter of great haste. Nevertheless, the season is good. It is very cold at night and fresh in the morning, but the insects and heat are out in full force come midday, and from then until evening, it is sheer misery in camp. You need have no fear of any failure. Those were the final words of Colonel Percy Harrison Fawcett. 2 years passed, and nothing was heard from him, his son, and the man who followed them. One of the famous explorers in history, along with all of the members of his expedition, has completely disappeared without any trace, and no one had an idea of what happened to them. This resulted in many expeditions being launched in order to find them. Mysteriously, each expedition suffered the same fate as Fawcett's. Everyone who followed the footsteps of Colonel Fawcett disappeared completely or lost their lives during the attempt. Fawcett's disappearance resulted in a total of 13 expeditions being mounted, in which more than 100 people lost their lives, attempting to find not only Fawcett, but the legendary lost city of Z as well. No one knows what exactly happened to Fawcett, his expedition, and to more than 100 people that set out to search for him. Numerous theories were proposed eventually. Some say Fawcett and his team were killed by an Amazonian tribe, while others suggest they may have starved, drowned, or suffered from a disease. There are some who say that Fawcett and his team reached the lost city of Z and perhaps spend their last days there. Perhaps the lost city of Z is still somewhere out there in the depths of the Amazon jungle. Perhaps we'll never discover its whereabouts. This video was sponsored by Ka Gold Jewelry, where sacred science, art, and spirit meet. Check out their website and their amazing jewelry and talismans based on sacred symbols for healing, self-balance, and unity. Click on the link in the description below for more information. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. And if you're new, hit subscribe and the bell next to it for future notifications.